I know a lot of the focus in Renegades is probably going to be on the lightsaber, and for good reason. Praxic Blade is a hell of a weapon. However, Heirloom is arguably one of the hardest hitting weapons I have ever used. Now, you've probably already seen this crossbow in recent Renegade Weapons and Gears trailer, or even from other content creators. And as you can clearly see, it pays homage to Chewbacca's bowcaster from Star Wars, considering that Renegades is a Star Wars inspired expansion. But during our time at Bungie, I wanted to truly experience everything Heirloom had to offer, which meant unlocking its catalysts. Now, I do want to mention that this is an early build, therefore there are some things that can change between now and the full release. But to be quite honest with you, I hope not much changes, because from my experience, Heirloom is damn near perfect. Now first, let's cover some of the basics about this solar exotic crossbow. It uses special ammo, it's a heat weapon, meaning you don't have to reload per se, but shooting and charging this weapon does consume heat. It'll cool on its own slowly when not fired, and you can also vent the weapon either manually or automatically if it does overheat. If you played any Star Wars Battlefront game, it's pretty similar to how blasters work in those games. And there's actually a sweet spot when you want to hit that reload that seems to pretty much exist on all of these type of weapons. Now, its intrinsic exotic trait is Bolt Thrower, which reads that this weapon fires high-powered explosive bolts. It's strong against unstoppable champions. Now, I had some time to bring this exotic into the firing range to do some testing, and at base, a single shot does 823 damage to the head of Greg here. Now, being an explosive bolt, the damage is split into two numbers, that direct hit and the explosive portion. Now, comparing this to one of our legendary crossbows currently in the game, when using heavy bolts, this deals 1,824 damage per crit to Greg. So we are talking a difference here of 1,000 damage between these two. But Heirloom is a special ammo weapon, and our normal legendary crossbows are heavy weapons. Now, the other part of this intrinsic is that it's strong against unstoppable champions. Yes, it instantly shreds unstops, typically stunning them in just one shot. Now, this brings up the other exotic trait on the weapon, Big Game Hunter. This reads that aim down sights for a period of time to overcharge the next bolt fire. Increase damage and area of effect for each charge level. Now, as you can see, guys, when you aim down sights, in the middle of this dual scope, you'll see a meter that starts to charge. And it also has a sound cue that'll play whenever a new bar of the meter is reached. And these are some nice bumps in damage. Again, at base, a regular crit was 823 damage against Greg. Charging up to 1 bar, though, of our meter gave us a 26% increase in damage at 1,035. Then when charging the meter to 2 bars, this kicks it up 50% at 1,230. And then finally, charging it all the way up, maxes out at 1,778 damage. Fellas, that is a whopping 116% increase in damage, rivaling that of our heavy legendary crossbows. Now, something interesting that we notice is that the charge damage seems to scale based on the entire meter and not exactly tiers like some other exotics. I had 2 tests with almost 2 bars fully charged that dealt different damage, one being 1,230 and the other being 1,170. But the highest damage I could get up to was 1,778. That seems to be the limit that I got when charging all the way. Now, something else to note here is that charging the meter also consumes heat. For instance, at base, a single uncharged shot consumes 12% of our heat meter. And then when charging up all the way and then firing, this consumes around 52% of the heat meter, which you can see both on the bottom left-hand corner where it shows the percentage, and also when aiming down sights, there's a meter near the top of the scope. Now, it's a bit of a game within a game to keep in mind while playing with this weapon. Shooting and charging does consume heat, but also on its own, the weapon will cool down when not being fired. Now, there were a few times when playing where the weapon did overheat and it would automatically just start venting. But for the most part, it felt easy to manage. Now, in terms of the rest of the perks on this weapon, for its rail, it has ultra light rail, which greatly increases handling speed and decreases reload speed. The magazine and battery perk is light heat sink, which reads lightweight agile battery, increases handling and vent speed. Then finally, we also have short action stock, which reads that this weapon is especially easy to grip and it greatly increases handling speed. Now, in terms of stats on this exotic, it has an impact stat of 44, a velocity stat of 33, persistence is 3, and it has 90 handling, 37 reload speed, 27 aim assist, 18 zoom, 5 airborne effectiveness, and an ammo generation stat of 45. Now, you can compare this to a legendary crossbow, but again, not really fair considering that's a heavy, this is a special. But for my PvP players that are wondering, is this crossbow good? I didn't really get much gameplay, but based on what I saw there while doing our testing and other people were also using it, nothing very impressive about Heirloom inside of PvP. Granted, things could change. Maybe Bungie gives it some buffs before the release, but this definitely seems more of a PvE weapon than a PvP weapon. But this now takes us to what I was really trying to target when reviewing this exotic, and that's the Catalyst. Its Catalyst reads that direct hits with charged shots scorches the targets. This weapon deals more damage against scorched targets. Now, as you can see here, every time we shoot a charged shot, this applies scorch to the targets. And interestingly enough, the scorch damage scales with our charge. As you can see here, the lowest scorch number we were getting were ticks dealing 8 damage. And on the high end, from a fully charged shot, this scorch ticked up to 17 damage. Now, Heirloom can also self-proc ignitions thanks to its Catalyst. I mainly tested this with Ember of Ashes, so I'm not 100% certain if it's required, but I was able to pretty consistently get an ignition to proc from 3 almost fully charged shots. And I really wish I had more time with this, guys, because there was even an instance where I did get an ignition to proc in just 2 charge shots, which means there's probably a sweet spot here on getting your full charge before scorch starts to fall off. Now, the other part of the exotic Catalyst reads that this weapon deals more damage against scorched targets, and this is a nice damage buff, guys. The highest damage number I got when testing was 2013 damage on a scorched target after fully charging the crossbow. This is around a 13% increase over a normally fully charged shot, and around 145% increase in damage over our base shot of 823. But you also have to keep in mind the extra damage from the scorch itself. So here you are, guys, with a special ammo crossbow that's essentially doing damage on par with our heavy legendary crossbows that also has the ability to intrinsically stun unstoppable champions and can also spawn ignitions. Can I just say, guys, it doesn't get much better than that. Now, for those wondering what about the synergy with certain exotics, I'm sure most people are still questioning, could this work with Oathkeepers? But again, just like our heavy crossbows, there's no synergy here. However, things like Hierarchy of Needs with Guidance Ring, that actually can work here with this crossbow. I wasn't able to personally test it, but it works with heavies. I would assume it would work here. In terms of subclass synergy, though, we have Ember of Ashes increasing the amount of scorch stacks that we can apply from the Catalyst. You can take advantage of Ember of Singeing, which allows our class ability to recharge faster when you scorch targets. Ember of Searing, where defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates fire sprites. Ember of Char, where solar ignition spreads scorch to affected targets. You can throw an Ember of Eruption, which increases the area of effect of our solar ignitions. You've got Ember of Blistering, where defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy if the ignition does get a kill. On Prismatic, you have things like Facet of Ruin, which also increases the area of effect of solar ignitions. Now, in terms of artifact synergy, I can't exactly show the artifact mods, but there are a few mods that this weapon will be able to benefit from. What I can tell you without a doubt, guys, is that this weapon is a chunker. It wasn't just the ability to deal with high health targets, which it seems to deal with very easily, even before I even started taking into account different exotics and artifact pairings, but also its ability to just clear ads. When hitting those high health targets, that AoE explosion around that kill would wreck everything. And this was across a variety of different content inside of Renegades, from the campaign itself, from the new activities. I found that this crossbow performed very well. And I know many people are going to be jumping up to compare this weapon to legendary crossbows, but I think the proper comparison is to things like Mint or other rocket-assisted pulse rifles. I think with certain exotic pairings, though, like Path of Burning Steps, Dawn Chorus, hell, I can even see myself breaking out some exotic class items on Hunter, combos such as Spirit of Foe Tracer or maybe Spirit of Verity, and mixing in some Gunpowder Gamble. I think you see where I'm going with this. I know everybody's going to be looking at Still Hunt with its rework and its increased damage with Celestial Nighthawk, and don't get me wrong, I'll be breaking out Still Hunt again too. But I really love what Heirloom is doing here. It's straddling that line between being its own heavy hitter on top of the ability to clear out ads, and has a host of ways to synergize with so many of our builds. I'm also just a really big fan of anything that takes advantage of Scorch, because more Scorch means more Kabloomies, which means everything dies very quickly. So guys, that is our review of this exotic crossbow. Let me know in the comments below what you think. We'll have more coming out with other exotics and other weapon types to look at. We even have an entire playlist devoted to Renegades, as well as our initial impressions. We'll have that one linked down below. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.